Alrighty. Hey everybody. How is everyone this Sunday? So we'll probably do just a quick live stream today. I got a session here after this, but wanted to make sure that I dropped in, answered any questions that you all have, and see what's going on with the community. So Ari Gold, great to see you. Thanks for joining, as always. Machine, hello. Nina, hi everyone, says Nina. Thank you for joining, as always, Nina. Machine says, Athen, I wanted to ask you, with Uranus and Jupiter coming out of retrograde almost a month ago, the crypto market tanked when I thought it would be a bullish time. Mars goes direct today, maybe this. So questions about what the crypto market might do. So I haven't been following it too closely, but let's see if we can get some indicators. So, sorry, this is someone's chart. Let's go ahead and take a look at the current sky using the Prometheus chart here. Well, I will say, okay, so we do have Aquarius season. Yeah, and that's the issue with, mainly Uranus. Okay, so whenever Uranus goes direct or retrograde, it tends to be a shift in the market sentiment. So because crypto was bullish leading up to the Uranus direct, in this case, a month ago, there was a higher probability that it would shift. Now again, generally speaking, because if you do believe that crypto does fall within the sort of money realm, maybe even commodity realm, if you think about it in the sense of Bitcoin and things like this, then, astrologically, again, this is not financial advice, and please don't make any decisions based on the astrology. But, we tend to see Taurus energy like this historically, especially with Jupiter in Taurus like this, to be generally an overall bullish. Okay, so I can't say exactly at what point we're going to start to see rallies or things like this. And again, this is not financial advice of any kind, but, I would say there's astrologically a higher probability that whatever we're seeing now as a sort of reversal or a tank, as you put it, is merely a correction. And according to what we're seeing here, astrologically, probably short term, I would imagine, because of the overall yearly energy and the bigger picture stuff, overall, astrologically looking more bullish. So again, I don't even want to say this stuff because this whole year can be horrible for crypto. It can be that way. And with astrology, we're only ever dealing in the realm of probabilities anyways. So I really only say this stuff for confirmation. So if you're already feeling like, you feel that it's bullish, you feel that it's a good financial decision for yourself, and you want the astrological confirmation of that, then traditionally, historically, we do see that this would be a correction on the short-term side is what I'm picking up with this. It could be that the Mars direct now starts to move it forward, seeing that Mars is in Gemini. It could be that just Jupiter needs to build a little bit more momentum, a little bit more steam. Station periods in general tend to be more challenging for markets because the energy pauses. And so if anything is, paused, there's uncertainty, and where there's uncertainty, there's not always, but people pulling money from that particular sector. And like I said, we also had the new moon in Aquarius on Thursday, so Thursday, Friday, and Mercury will be sextiling Uranus as well. Venus will be retrograde though. That's why I'm also a bit hesitant in making these kinds of predictions because, Venus does rule money and resources. It rules that Taurus energy. And so she'll be retrograde all the way until mid-April. So she'll be retrograde for a full month and a half. So typically, again, we can see short-term corrections in this larger period. Probably good to be a little bit flexible right now, obviously, not only because of the corrections, but because of things like these, namely Venus retrograde coming up. But there's a lot of, like I said, overall bigger picture support, I would say, generally speaking. Saturn's also entering Pisces, so when it comes to all kinds of investments in general, there is this uncertainty now, and probably for the next few years, there's likely going to be a lot of uncertainty with all things Saturn. Saturn doesn't just rule the financial markets, but Saturn rules all the structures of life. So it's navigating this, it's trusting more of our intuition over these next few years. Okay, but there can certainly be a lot of uncertainty in the markets, I would imagine, over the next few years with Saturn. Just now, literally this week, Monday, starting to get closer to Pisces and entering Pisces for the next 3 years. But thanks, Machine. Hopefully this gives a perspective to everyone, not just in the crypto market, but that was a great question to go into some of the transits that we have. Hey, Karmic Kerfuffle, great to see you. Hi, everyone. Athen, how is Zeus? Zeus is good. Zeus is home with his mama, Joanna, at the house. I'll see him here in just a couple hours once I get home, but he's doing well. Thank you for asking. Millie, great to see you. I was wondering, as everyone talks about March being a super hectic month astrologically and tropical, what's the actual situation in true sidereal astrology? Well, March is the eclipse month, and so typically eclipses are going to have that sort of negative connotation, if you will. The energies are, generally wonky, is the way I would say it, because not only do we have Venus going retrograde, which is normal, but she's going retrograde at the same time that Mercury is going retrograde as well. So let me go ahead and pull up, oh no, it's not what I want. Pull up the yearly transits again. So eclipses, March 14th, March 29th. They are the last eclipses of this Virgo Pisces energy that we've had eclipses in for the past really 2 years, honestly. And so finishing up a lot of these developments around personal development, spiritual development. Virgo and Pisces generally are not easy energies to work with in general, as maybe a lot of you have seen this past couple of years, not necessarily being that they're challenging, but that it's been a lot of themes around, personal development. So Venus goes retrograde, as we said, here on Saturday, going into March. And then we have Mercury going retrograde, which will be March 15th, and for the remainder of March. Okay, so I would say the second half of March definitely looks, and this is also part of March 14th eclipse. So, we have that eclipse March 14th. That's going to be a total lunar eclipse. That is going to be at roughly the same time as Mercury going station and then retrograde, with Venus already retrograde. Okay, in Pisces. So, I come from everything from a personal development standpoint. I don't believe everyone has challenging energy at the same time and whatnot. But, if we're looking at this, again, it's really, I would say, an important month to develop that Pisces energy healthfully. Okay, so there can be, again, with Saturn entering Pisces too, there can be dreaminess, there can be idealism, there can be uncertainty, there can be feeling lost, there can be, not feeling very grounded, dissolving boundaries, things of this nature. But it's an opportunity to help us connect more with our soul. Now, as I'm sure everyone would agree, that spiritual development, soul development is not easy, okay? And so that's what makes Pisces a more difficult energy to work with collectively. But if that's our intention is to have more mental health and spiritual health, is to connect more with our soul. We're willing to go back and reconnect and rework and rethink this stuff, then great. It's a beautiful time of reconnecting the soul and learning a lot. I mean, it's wonky because there's the retrogrades in Pisces, and it's like, imagine you're on a boat and then you drop something on the boat and you got to go turn around, and you don't see it, you don't know where it is, you don't know where it's floated, you've even navigated, changed course a little bit. It's not like you dropped it in a car where you could just easily go back and just drive down that same path. You've got currents, you've got all these other factors, and it takes time. So it's this kind of a thing, not that it's about losing anything, but it's about reclaiming, reconnecting, and it's in that watery energy of Pisces, of the soul, of the spiritual, of the uncertain, and all of this. So if we're going by traditional astrology, I would say yes, March does look in true sidereal as a more challenging month. But I don't want to give the impression that that means suffering or difficulties in the sense of things outside of ourselves having some kind of effect on us. It's going to be just like every month, a great month of development, but it does make it more difficult to develop simply because of the fact that it's in Pisces. We have the retrograde energies, and of course eclipses are transformative time periods as well. Okay, so tropical is going to read a little bit differently because I believe they're having, well, it looks like they're having some of it in Pisces, some of it in Aries. So it's going to be quite similar actually to tropical in many ways because it's at the beginning of Pisces, and that's tropical territory of Pisces. But yeah, that's my interpretation of it in terms of the visible sky here. Okay. But great question. I love getting into these, collective energies. All right, where were we here? Let's see. That was Millie. Thank you, Millie. I'm feeling lucky. Great to see you. Thank you. Hey, Athen, Mars retrograde over. Let's see what this brings. Exciting times ahead. Yeah, I'm already feeling a bit of a shift. Today, I actually meditated for the first time in months. I'm not very proud to say that. I used to meditate a lot, but just haven't done it. And I can feel the pause. I can feel the space again. It's for me felt like a very frustrating and delaying and even irritating time for me personally, having Mars retrograde. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but for me personally, I've definitely felt that pause on the Mars, pause on the fire, reworking and all that. And yeah, I think the energy is going to slowly move forward. Do give it some time, of course. Mars is, the slowest of the fast movers, but he is stationed right now and going to be slowly moving direct next week. Hey, Jeremiology, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining. Seeking the Path Forward, thanks for joining. Question is hi, is there a planner available? I'm only finding Vedic. So I used to do a planner, but it was very time consuming. I might get back to it now that we have other tools like AI can automate a lot of the process. But there's no need because Phoenix Aurelius has an excellent calendar with the true sidereal dates. So Gabriella, if you could, if you can Google Phoenix true sidereal calendar, you'll see it's at Felix Aurelius's website. And if you could link that calendar to everyone in the chat, it's still pretty early in the year, so for those that want a true sidereal calendar using this true sidereal system, Phoenix has a very well laid out, very detailed and very beautiful calendar available both in digital and physical form. Amethyst Aura, thanks for joining. Happy Sunday. Happy Mars Direct. Very much so. Have Bliss, great to see you. Hi, souls. Jeremiology, I am feeling Mars going direct very strong with my natal Mars in Leo. Well, that would be, typically a nice sextile there. A little supportive for you, so that's really good to hear. Hey, Gabriella, thank you so much for always moderating our chats. So Jeremiology says, and my natal Mars is in my first house. How do I direct and transmute this fiery energy? So, I mean, really, it's the same way we would all do it, but for you specifically with matters of your identity, what have you learned about who you are and what you want? Now, I'm actually speaking to everybody here because having Mars in the first house is like you're picking up on what's going on generally for everybody, right? Mars rising, in your case, relative to when you were born. So for you, Jeremiology, but really for everybody with Mars, and it's Mars in the first house, this is how we'd read it too, but for everyone with Mars direct, it's like taking what we've been really learning about ourselves, and whether it's been intentional learning or not, there's been a lot of experiences, I would say, these past few months to help us really understand what we desire, what we want on one hand. That of course has a lot to do with identity, because who we are plays a huge role in what we want. And then secondary to all that is like, how have we used to been going about it? How have we been pursuing our goals? How have we been assertive? How have we been going about things to get what we want? And how can we start to approach it differently now? And so there's been a lot of learning about our assertive side, our proactive side, our expressive side. And now I think it's going to be very healthy. I mean, healthier, right? We need these retrogrades. We see this collectively too. Leading up to Mars, I mean, we had a lot of aggression on the planet, these wars, Middle East, and now the retrograde Mars has cooled things off. We have a time to pause, we have a time to reflect, and now Mars can move forward, and I think we can do a lot of these personal and collective things in much more healthier ways now that Mars is direct. So to integrate the energy, reflect on these past months since December regarding what you've learned about yourself, what you want, and how you go about attaining that, because there's some new and different things to be learned here and to be implemented now, and new and different ways of going about things in life that we can approach differently now, go about differently now. Amethyst Aura, look at what's opposite your Mars, the house sign. Yeah, and you can always get more detailed with it. Of course, you've got the other aspects. It can get very personal. Oppositions, as Amethyst said, is very important. You can always look at opposite planets in your chart for that. April Moore, great for you to join us. Greetings to all, says April. Aiden, thanks for joining. Aiden says, I think gold might be a better investment than crypto. Gold has tripled in value in the last 7 years. Thank you for the incredible work, Athen. Thank you very much, Aiden. Aquarius Sky Clock, thanks for joining. Silver will have to be revalued, so you will end up with more bang for your buck with silver. Looks like we've got a lot of investors in here. That's cool. And this is great. We can track this stuff. We can see and share each of our different perspectives on things. Nova, great for you to join us. Nova Cynthia Barker. Thank you, Millie. Nina, what does it really mean when one Saturn returns? Is it always a difficult time in life? I'm just going to say this in general, is that, mainstream astrology is very negative. It's very negative. Call it clickbait. Call it, I don't know, trying to, I don't know. But there's a lot of, negativity in terms of whenever something happens, astrologically, it's this doom and gloom. And I just don't see it that way. I think all the transits, even the difficult ones, as we said, with this upcoming retrogrades in March, they're all there for our personal growth and development. I think the suffering in life comes from whenever we're resisting the energy. So the mere fact of being aware of, hopefully, the true sky astrology, but being aware of the astrology, working with the time period for what it's meant to be, working within the cycles, doing what the signs and the planets and the houses are sort of wanting us to do at that time. It's just like the seasons, it's like, imagine a farmer, right? And the farmer's going to ask, is it going to be a difficult year for farming? Well, yeah, there's going to be some nuances, right? And that's what the astrology can show us, some of the nuances, but not this definitive doom and gloom kind of a thing, right? Whether the farmer is successful that year has way more to do with if the farmer is working with, in this case, the seasonal cycle, right? Is the farmer planting things when it's right to plant those things? Are they, an extreme example would be like, well, if a farmer plants things in, the early winter or the late autumn, then, it's not going to go well. That's like working against the cycle. And that might be like not working with the Pisces energy that, for example, we talked about in March. So I believe it's all about working within the cycle for what it's helping us develop. And so long as we're doing that, which we don't even really need astrology for, because at the end of the day, we're all connected to nature and we can always turn inward or connected to the natural world. And that's all telling us all this stuff anyways. But the astrology is very helpful in that we can literally see where we're at in these cycles. And so it's more like working with the weather. And so as long as we're working with the weather for what the weather is most conducive for, it's great. Even these so-called challenging aspects, Pluto squaring Moon, like arguably the most challenging aspect. I have readings all the time. I just had a reading today with someone having Pluto square Moon coming up. But I have so many of them where it's extremely positive, extremely transformative and empowering in this case. So anyways, to answer the question though, because I wanted to go into that a little bit, Nina, because there's a lot of stuff in the mainstream always very skewed in the negative direction, or that it's difficult. But it's good to challenge ourselves, and that is what Saturn's about, is challenging ourselves. And so the Saturn return is basically when Saturn comes back to the part of the sky it was when you were born. So if someone, and this happens every 29 years roughly. So right now we have Saturn going into Pisces in true sidereal. And if someone was born, let's say someone's 29 years old, give or take because of the retrograde, it's a little difficult to say exactly, but roughly someone's about 29 years old, that means they had Saturn at the beginning of Pisces in their natal chart when they were born. Saturn was so right now they would be having their Saturn return because Saturn has now come back to where it was when the person was born. So this is the return. And it's basically the beginning of the cycle. So every planet has a return. There's a Jupiter return every 12 years. There's a Uranus return every 84 years. So the speeds are obviously different. But just like we have a new moon every month, or we have our solar return, which is every year, we're basically starting a new cycle. So with the Saturn return, we're starting the cycle of Saturn. So what Saturn wants us to do is be responsible, see the long term, be patient, disciplined, and persevere. Okay, it's like building the mountain. It's like climbing the mountain one step at a time. It's more about long-term gains versus short-term gains. And so this is, what we see when we enter our 30s. A good analogy of this is we've seen so many rock stars or people who have lived very non-Saturn lives, right? A non-Saturn life would be like anti-discipline, responsibility, really. And just living wildly in the moment and all this. And they don't, as they say, they don't make it at their Saturn return. So Saturn return can start at 27, and we have this, I think it's the 27 club is what they call it. So as you start to get within that Saturn return time period, it's difficult. It is difficult in the sense that now they have to grow up. And if their soul's not ready for that, or they don't want that, or they don't do it, well then, I'm not saying death is always the way out. It's just an example. But this is a good example that, like, yeah, the Saturn return is difficult in the sense that you have to grow up. You have to grow up. And it's time for the next 30 years to take on more healthy responsibilities in life and sacrifice things in the short term for the long term, right? And this is then when we get to our second Saturn return 30 years after that. So once we get to our late 50s, we then come to the second Saturn return, and that's where we typically will reflect on the previous 30 years. And what we typically do in the middle 30, so from 30 to 60 roughly, is we tend to sacrifice ourselves a lot, right? Because that's what we have to do to grow up and, do what's responsible. It's kind of putting the self and the self's needs aside for whatever the responsibility is, whether it's your family or a relationship or the career or whatever. And so by the second Saturn return, after we've, in many cases, finished up those responsibilities, we ask ourselves, where have we sacrificed ourselves? And then now Saturn takes on more of the Aquarian energy. So I'm going pretty deep into this, but this is a very good question, and I think very applicable for everybody. The first Saturn return holds more of the Capricorn energy. So Capricorn is really the conscious Saturn. It's the structure, the discipline, all that. Okay, we talked about that. First Saturn return is very much like that. But traditionally, before we discovered Uranus in the 1700s, Saturn ruled Aquarius. And we would say that Aquarius is Saturn's unconscious side. So every planet, except the sun and moon, rules two signs. And one's conscious and one's unconscious. And in this case, Saturn's unconscious is Aquarius, which means that as Saturn's going around and building and doing these responsibilities and achieving things, which is what Capricorn's about, Saturn's unconsciously projecting changes to the world. And changes to the world, which is Aquarius, from a place of the true self, that we're all here to contribute something unique to the world. And so by the second Saturn return, it takes on more of the Aquarius energy. Where have we sacrificed ourselves? Where have we sacrificed our uniqueness? And where can we now, for the next 30 years of the remainder of our life, build a life that's more true to that true self? And build a life based on that unique spark and individuality. And so the two returns are slightly different in that sense, as you can see, but they are all fundamentally about starting this new cycle around really responsibility. The first one is responsibility to the status quo stuff, work hard, take care of family, right? And then the second Saturn return is the responsibility to self, right? Which we start to see in terms of retirement ages, kids are moving out of the house, things of this nature. Okay, so great question, very important time periods when we're having these returns. The difficulties there because of the responsibility, but just so long as we understand that difficult here means challenging ourselves versus it being some external thing happening to us, which is not how I see astrology. I don't think that's a very constructive way of looking at astrology, which unfortunately is very popular in the mainstream. All right, where are we here? All right. Yeah, it's a break from, today is like a break from Mars, Aiden. Yeah, it's like, if that's what I said, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like just this pause with the Mars stuff with the station. Seems like a lot of us are feeling that shift forward with Mars. That's really good. So Amethyst, we'll save those personal questions for readings and things like this. But if you have any collective questions that are applicable to everybody, please let me know. Seeking the Path Forward says, thank you so much. I'm happy to say that I'm a Virgo and true sidereal, and it matches. Great. Always happy to hear when the true sidereal resonates. All right, everyone, so we'll go ahead and start to wrap up here. Let me see if there's a few more questions. I wanted to keep this one short here as I do have an appointment here on the hour. But I want to make sure you all have all your questions answered. Millie says, speaking of Pisces season, I'm noticing how funny it is that all these planets go retrograde in Pisces while also Chiron and North Node are in there. Lots of healing past wounds to move forward, I feel. Yeah, exactly. The Pisces, along with, as you said, the Chiron, the North Node, that's the eclipses, and Neptune, yeah. So Amethyst, Athen, I'm so curious what your sun sign is. So I'm a sun in Capricorn. I'm a moon in Leo. And I'm a Taurus rising. So those are my big three. My ruler is Venus from Taurus, and she's over in Aquarius. So a lot of, the work I do, I find it very Aquarian in nature, and I attribute that to my chart ruler, Venus. As you can see, I express myself, I think, quite reserved. That's the Capricorn, but I have that inner Leo. And so for those that know me personally, I think I can be quite playful and very shy as the Leo is. But, again, the Leo, being that it's my inner self, the reason it's shy. If I was a sun in Leo, I'd be much more expressive. But that inner Leo does want to be seen and heard and expressed and educate and really create things for people. And so, that's how I like to combine it with the Capricorn, is the creative energy of Leo with this sort of structure and what I hope is practicality with my astrology with the Capricorn side of things. But thanks for asking, Amethyst. Karmic Kerfuffle, how long will Jupiter be in Taurus? Well, not much longer. What is it? In May, I think. Jupiter will be in Taurus until June 5th-ish. We don't want to get too precise with that. There's actually a pretty large gap between Taurus and Gemini, but we'll say early June until then. Jupiter in Taurus till early June. Expanding the resourceful energies of life, the inner and outer resources of life. So Seeking the Path Forward says, in mainstream, we're told to focus on our rising. Was also confused because what my soul knew and what it said was off. Now I'm Virgo, Taurus, Moon, and Cancer rising. So the rising sign in true sidereal is more of what life's helping us develop. This is a big point here, is that in mainstream, the rising is more of the persona, how we're seen by the world, the external environment, how we present ourselves to the world. And in true sidereal, it's more of what life's helping us develop. So for you as a Cancer rising, the true sidereal is not going to say that your persona is Cancer or that you present yourself as Cancer. But it's going to say that if you look at your life experiences, your life is helping you become more Cancerian. Connect more with your feelings, caretaking, protecting for yourself and others, nurturing for yourself and others. These will be main themes throughout your life because life wants you to become more Cancer. And as time goes on, you will, of course, become more and more Cancerian. Because of those life experiences, though, not because you were born with it, like they would say in Tropical. Yeah, so my friend has Saturn conjunct Moon in Pisces. Will this make it more emotional? The Saturn return more emotional? Yes. And that's why the Saturn return, it's good to look at those other planets involved, absolutely. Vesta return is a thing. You can track any return. So the Accidental Alchemist, Thanks for joining, by the way. Says, I got divorced during my Saturn return. I shifted away from him, and that's totally okay. I'm better for listening. Yeah, so that's great to see the positive results of that. And, you know, a lot of it depends on where the Saturn return was, what area of life we're talking about. Yeah, thank you for the link, Gabrielle. So Gabrielle put the link to Phoenix's calendar, true sidereal calendar. Very accurate, very helpful. All right. So if I didn't get to your question, I'm sorry, but I think I've covered it. So thank you again, everybody. Hope it was helpful. It's really good to connect with you all and answer your questions and see your experiences. So see you next week at the same time as usual. Have a